No exaggeration, saw the marketing for this film everywhere. It seemed to play in front of nearly every single movie I saw over the past few months, and commercials for it aired during nearly all the NFL games I watched during that time. It was inescapable. So Apple Studios seemed so confident in this film that they were willing to commit a ton of money to the marketing in addition to its already massive $200 million budget. And man, after all that build-up, hyping this film as one of the big film events of the year, man, did I walk away feeling disappointed. Alright, before we get started, as always, a quick thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. If you enjoy the content I make and would like to offer your support, then for as little as $1 a month, you can get your name listed right here at the start of every video. Link to that is in the description below. And now, let's get into the actual review. Argylle, the newest film set in the Kingsman universe, tells the story of Ellie Conway, a famous introverted author who pens a series of books about a suave international spy named Argylle. However, while writing her new book, she unintentionally kicks a hornet's nest she didn't even know existed, and suddenly finds herself the center of a real-life espionage adventure. Argylle is the purest definition of a film that I so desperately wanted to be better than it actually is. And that is honestly the most frustrating kind of film for me to review. It's one thing to eviscerate a bad film that I had zero expectations for going in, but when you have a film with a good premise, with a fun cast, and made by a director that you know can be talented, and for it to come up short is nothing short of infuriating for all the wrong reasons. The problem with Argylle is one of sheer excess. There are just simply too many ideas thrown in here, elements dissonantly clashing together, and the film constantly feels like it's fighting with itself rather than everything working in tandem. This film takes so many elements from so many other different films like Romancing the Stone, Night and Day, The Lost City, and another film that I can't mention without giving away the film's big twist. But this never really settles into its own identity. And the reason for that might be because this film's plot can't seem to stay on track for too long. This is a film that is packed with twist upon twist upon twist. The film almost seems like it's in a non-existent game to keep trying to surprise the audience. But by doing this, it ironically actually becomes pretty easy to see where it's going as a result. The movie, in a sense, almost becomes obsessed with trying to pull one over on the audience. But the problem with doing this so much is that neither the characters nor the audience have the time to let this new information breathe before we're thrown into the next twist. Which kind of leads me to believe that this was originally supposed to be a miniseries that had to be crammed into a 2.5-hour long feature film. One twist is clearly supposed to be of great emotional significance to the characters, but is severely undercut by the fact that it involves a character that we've barely seen up to this point, so the emotion it's going for just falls flat. Much like the Kingsman films that came before it, Argylle is a film that wallows in unremitting silliness, while simultaneously indulging in a twisted sense of humor. And sometimes that kind of humor does work in the film. There's a really funny scene where Sam Rockwell's character is trying to teach Ellie about how to crush someone's skull with her foot and tries to compare it to dancing. Now, see, that's funny. If the film had more moments like that, it probably would have been a lot better. But the film can't really get that dark that often because this film is severely restricted with its PG-13 rating. The action in the film is very slick and bombastic, as one would expect from Matthew Vaughn, but the lack of blood and gore that's present in his other works actually hurts his own style. Because without the blood to try to ground the fight scenes, the stylized action looks so artificial. Not helping matters was a really bad decision to have actors Henry Cavill and Sam Rockwell swapping characters in the middle of their action scenes, which is not only really distracting, it also makes it harder to know what's even going on. But since they've been brought up, let's talk about the actors. Most of them are kind of a mixed bag. Bryce Dallas Howard actually does do a good job playing the introverted, neurotic author type, although as the film progresses, her performance gets less and less convincing. Bryan Cranston is trying to emulate his Walter White persona into that of a villain of a Saturday morning cartoon, and doesn't really succeed. Henry Cavill is okay enough with what he's given to do, which admittedly is not much. Catherine O'Hara is also not really that convincing in what she's asked to do. Samuel L. Jackson is basically just playing himself, which he is good at, but he's not really playing a character here. The one actor that I would say walks away pretty much unscathed is Sam Rockwell as Aiden. Not only is Rockwell so convincing as an espionage agent, which, I mean, he should, he's had practice, but the level of unhinged derangement they give his character, almost like he has a screw loose, is actually a really refreshing take on the secret agent ropes civilian into a life or death situation dynamic. And sure, later on you do learn why he's acting the way he is, and it does make sense in hindsight, but I did like the characterization that they gave him initially, and he does get some of the film's funniest lines. But sadly, that aspect of his character gets toned down the further into the story we get, especially, like I said, when we learn there's a reason for his behavior. And it's simply not as funny in hindsight when we learn why he is this way. And really, that's the big issue with this film. The longer it goes on, the worse it gets, both as the story gets more complicated, and even as it undercuts what good it did beforehand. The climax in particular just goes on and on and on, and features an action set piece so dumb that it can't be taken seriously, even in a comedy. Had the story been kept relatively simple and straightforward, I think this could have been a decent, solid popcorn thriller, but the film overcomplicates itself to the point of borderline self-parody, while simultaneously working overtime to make sure every single plot thread is wrapped up in as neat a bow as possible, no matter how illogical it is. Now, there's never a moment where the film becomes out and out terrible. It is almost always watchable at the bare minimum, but man, with everything this film had going for it, it should have been far better than merely watchable. Argylle has fleeting moments of superficial entertainment, but gets bogged down in the details. And by the end of its bloated runtime, you feel the length, especially as it bludgeons you with its twists and turns. And the metatextual elements endemic to this premise that could have helped elevate this are ignored in favor of a more generic route. As a piece of popcorn entertainment, the film is sleek, flashy, and grandiose enough that it might be appealing enough to audiences, but I think even they will get a little bit restless by the end. And that's a shame because I was rooting for this film even while I was watching it. I so desperately wanted this to be a film that I really liked, and I encouraged people to go out to support in the theater. But unfortunately, it missed the mark. Argylle gets a half-empty shot. And I guess that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you want to see my early thoughts of any film I watch or to read more of my reviews, make sure to check out my Letterboxd account. The link to that is in the description below. And make sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss any upcoming reviews. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.